Right, so I'm almost out of time for the next before the next video needs to be ready for Patreon, and then by extension YouTube the next day or next few days, whatever. And so we're looking at NewAge Mista or Mista, whatever. I used to work at a coffee shop. I'm just going to call it a Mista. So yeah, this is a figure that I've had for a while, and it's been in a number of videos, one not that long ago, but I've never given this guy his own dedicated proper video. Best I've managed was like a comparison video back when I first got it. So since I have very few things left, not counting the stuff that I'm waiting on, but that's in the mail and that's not going to get here in time for when this needs to be ready, we're looking at him now. So this is it. This is the dedicated NewAge Mista video. And it's Dark the Moon Soundwave. This is it's something that's a little annoying about this was like when it first came out, NewAge was saying like, oh, you got to get this edition in order to get the like the Ravage and the Laserbeak and all that. And then like every subsequent release since then seems to have come with everything. So it's just like, what was even the point? But does indeed come with Ravage and Laserbeak. They do not transform. They just pose. But we'll take a look at them first. I'm just looking at these little tabby things on the back of the window, but I never noticed those before. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna ignore Soundwave for now, and we'll start by looking at Laserbeak. It's a pretty decent approximation of Dark the Moon Laserbeak. He's got that hideous little vulture face with little red eyes. They also painted the turbines around the wings silver. Parts of the wings are, maybe they're not painted, I think it's just cast in silver. But anyway, they got silver plastic for the wings. The turbines are painted red. You got a little bit of red back here for these feathers, and that's pretty much it. And then for articulation, as you can see, the wings can go up and down. You can rotate at this joint where the turbine meets this little strut, but it's very stiff, so maybe that's not intentional. So I'm just gonna not do that a bunch. The wings can fold in and out. This one is a little bit looser, but there's just a screw right in there, so I'm assuming tightening that would fix it. The neck is on a ball joint, so that can wiggle around, can go up, down, kind of left, kind of right. But you can also rotate the neck, which is really handy because it's got this curve in it. So you can use that coupled with the ball joint at the head to make it look more like the head is turning more dramatically. And also because of the head being on a ball joint, the head itself can look up and down and left and right and rotate. The tail's also on a ball joint, so it can go up, down, left, right, and rotate. And then the tail tip is on a little hinge, so that can go up and down. The hips are on ball joints, so those can swing around and go in and out a bit. These little feather bits with the guns on the ends there are separate, so you can rotate them up and down. The knees do not bend, but the feet are on ball joints, so you can move those up and down and rotate them and tilt them. So pretty decently posable little techno vulture. And also short-sightedly not sculpted or designed in any specific way so as to easily perch on the figure, on the robot mode figure. But we'll get into that when we get to the robot mode itself. Now Ravage, same deal. It's cast in this kind of sparkly gray plastic with some hits of gold or possibly copper. It's really kind of difficult to tell for the eye, some of the biceps, some of the hips, and the rest is just plastic. But very well articulated as well. There's this little hinge on the tail that you can flip this piece forward or keep it back. I prefer to keep it back. You can also rotate at this hinge, rotate at this hinge, and there's a ball joint in the base of the tail. So you can have the tail going down, you can have it going up, you can have it going to the side. You got options there. As you can see, I prefer to kind of have it up like that. The cannons on the back are on a ball joint, so those can swivel around, go up and down, and even tilt left and right. Do these rotate? No, they're pegged in on these rectangular pegs, so those are not gonna, the individual guns aren't gonna rotate. Rear legs are on ball joints at the hips, so those do all the wiggly stuff, in, out, rotate, that kind of thing. You've got knee, no thigh swivel, but you can kind of use the hips ball joint in place of that. So knee, other knee, whatever this is called on a quadruped, and then ball jointed foot, ball joint at the lower waist for rotation, up, down, left, right, ball joints at the upper torso for a little bit of twist and also up, down, left, right. Ball joint at the front arms for going in, out, around, pseudo bicep swivel rotation, and then knee or whatever, elbow maybe, ball joint at the foot. So pretty posable in the body and arms and legs. Well, legs, I guess, not arms. And then for the head, ball joint at the base of the neck for all that same kind of articulation for the lower body and midsection, ball joints where the head meets the neck, and the mouth can open and close. But it's a little bit weird in that the it's not the jaw that moves up and down, it's the top part of the head. Like it's this part that moves up and down, while the jaw itself is what's plugged into the neck joint. So yeah, Ravage is also pretty posable, really expressive. I like how, I like having this guy on the shelf, on the Soundwave shelf, because he just, I don't know, I think he looks really dynamic and nice, even if it is a Bayverse design. But we are not here to talk about Soundwave's accessories or Mista's accessories. We are here to talk about the figure itself, and this is definitely the Dark of the Moon Soundwave car. The, what is it, Mercedes, whatever this is. It looks the part. I wish the windows were a little bit darker so that you couldn't so clearly see all the robot junk inside, but it is what it is. It's got a decent amount of panel lines all over the place, but I don't think it's that bad, really. It's nice and silver all over the thing. There's black in the grille, in multiple sections of the front of the car, really. Headlights are clear plastic. They kind of stand out in the car mode. I've said this with some of the other Soundwaves I've looked at before, where I feel like the way they handle the headlights works a little bit better because those headlights actually stand out more from the car mode. But here, it's fine. You can see that they're there. They just don't pop like I really wish they did, or like I enjoy them doing with other Soundwaves. You got kind of a chromey finish with some red paint on the wheels, and it does that thing that ever since I saw people pointing this out, it's been bugging me, the fact that the brake calipers are attached to the mold. They're part of the molding of the rim, so when the wheel spins, so does the brake, and that's just annoying. I wish they had just kept that out entirely rather than put it in, but whatever. And on the underside, you can see there is a crammed-in robot in there, and it's a little bit challenging getting this guy into vehicle mode. It's nowhere near as bad as the Cyber-era oversized knockoff of the toy, whatever it is. I forget the name of it, but the one I looked at most recently, the Dark of the Moon Soundwave I looked at most recently, this thing is nowhere near as bad to transform as that. And it's not even what I would call bad. It's just there are certain bits that are very specific, and if you haven't transformed this thing in a while, like me before I got into this, getting everything to line up was a little bit of a bear. But I did it, and as you can see, he rolls quite well. So yeah, that is Mista, you gotta get me out of here. If anyone knows what that's from, it's Happy Gilmore. Anyway, size-wise, it's a somewhat movie masterpiece adjacent third-party figure, so it's about that size. I've got a little gray kitty who really wants attention, So there's probably going to be an Astrid in this video. If nothing else, there's going to be random camera shakes as she attempts to jump on my lap and possibly climb into frame. Anyway, here he is with the standard size comparisons I've been using. Voyager Dinobot, Ova Prime as our stand-in for Atal Deluxe, and Samus. Get these out of here. And now would be the perfect time for her to jump up because I'm at my least balanced as I carefully try and get everyone off to the side. And there she is. There's Burnout. Astrid, be careful of the cord. Yes, yes, I love you too. You want to purr into the microphone? You want to purr into the microphone? I don't know if her purrs are coming through, but she is or was nuzzling the microphone. Anyway, here is Mista with, yes, I love you too, honey. Can I please do this without you climbing in front of me? That would be super. So here is Mista with Burnout. And yeah, it's a vaguely movie masterpiece-ish figure, so bigger than a deluxe. And finally, I do have other size comparisons than the standards, but I'm saving those all for robot mode. But finally, here is Mista with the duck tank. She might be a little extra clingy because she horked up some tape earlier today, isn't that right? She has a thing for packing tape, and even when we're at our most careful about it, she still finds a way. But yeah, before we transform Mista into a proper or proper-ish looking Dark of the Moon Soundwave, if you like this video or any other videos that I've done, I do have a Ko-fi and a Patreon. Patreon right now is, I'll make a separate thing about that. But basically, if you do decide to join the Patreon, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please don't do it through the iOS app. Just any other way, like through, if you have an Android phone, that way, or through a web browser, like say, even if you use an iPhone, Safari on the iPhone, just don't go through the Patreon iPhone app because things. Anyway, if you would rather support the channel other ways, you can always do the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. Now to transform Mista. This is going to be interesting because I'm trying to keep the cat from jumping in front of me, which means I have to constantly pet her. But if I stop petting her, she's going to jump up. But if I keep petting her, I can't transform this thing. So to start, we're going to open up the doors, which the easiest way to do that is to use this little gap here. Just get a nail in there and pull this way, and that will unplug the door from here, and it'll also subsequently unplug it from here. And you can also open the door if you want, and this little tab plugs in up here. Oh, she's off me. Yay! This little tab plugs in here. Come on. Why are you doing this? There we go. So you can actually open the doors if you want. It just shows you a bunch of robot junk in there, but you can do that. But anyway, that is how you unplug the doors, and then I'm just going to swing that forward, up and forward to get it out of the way. Swing that up and unplug it, swing it forward. Now, I'm going to separate it from the center here, and I think I need to adjust the ISO a bit more on this camera. There we go. So right in here, this little diagonal seam is where it's going to disconnect. So you want to kind of separate the front and back halves apart. And that will unplug, and then this will swing up. And we'll work on the lower body first. So, all right, first thing, going to hold these flaps out just to kind of get them out of the way. And then also going to take these bits here and fold them around just to try and get them out of the way. These pieces unplug from the side of the wheel well, and this will swing. For now, we'll swing it down. Trying to figure out the best way to approach this so that things kind of stay out of everything else's way. But here we've got that. Now we can split the back section, and it also plugs in up here, so you want to be careful to make sure you untap that before you start moving things around too dramatically. So there we go. I'm just going to rotate this one out of the way again so we can work on this leg first. So, to start, going to take this back section, the trunk section here, and this will kind of pull up and out at a bit of an angle. It doesn't slide back or up, it kind of comes up at this kind of diagonal motion, but pull that up. With that up, now this flopping around is kind of, these doors, like they needed a little bit more give on like where they can go. But anyway, this window section here also unplugs. That just tabs in to the, come on. There we go. There's this little tab. It's this little tab right here that plugs in right in here. So you want to untab that. Now with that untabbed, can rotate this out of the way. Actually, before we do that, I want to shift this to try and get it a little bit out of the way so we can rotate this around. So you want to rotate this around, pull this piece down, and then with all this done, you should be able to also get this out of the way. You should be able to take what will become the robot mode foot and pull that down. It ends up like wrapping around the leg, so you kind of have to pull this down. And oh, I forgot to do this. This little flap, it kind of gets in the way. So pull that up. Now you can pull this foot out. The other leg will go smoother, I promise. So pull this out. And this kind of unwraps from the leg. Then you want to unwrap it further because there's a hinge here. So unwrap that. And then we can pull this little spiky thing down further. Straighten out what will become the knee. And rotate this whole assembly out even further because there's another joint. Like this was the joint, this inner joint here is what this moves on. Now there's this outer joint that swings down as well to properly straighten out to make the leg. And now the thigh can... I'm just trying to get stuff so it's not crashing into stuff, but the thigh can rotate around. This piece kind of settles to one side to make the hip armor and can bring the leg down. And that will just be how it sits for now, at least. And then to do the rest of this, we want to unplug the kind of lower bumper from here. This also needs to move around, but unplug lower bumper. This kind of shifts down and up. It's on a slider. It's hard to see, but there is a... This gray piece is, or silver piece is on a slider. So you want to slide it down so you can kind of bring this up more, and this whole assembly will rotate around. This piece, it just kind of tucks into the leg like this. It doesn't really seem to have anywhere specific to go. Not that I've been able to find anyway, but it just kind of tucks in. And now this piece, this bumper section, rotates down. Okay, I've got to get this out of the way for this. Bumper section rotates down. Bumper section rotates down. There we go. That rotates down. Once that's unplugged, because it's plugged into this tail light, you want to shift this out and rotate this around 180 degrees so that the tail light's facing forward. Now this whole thing will telescope in, and then this tab here will plug in to this slot on the inside of the leg. And you may need to, I don't know if it's better to shift this piece out or not. I think you actually have to push it back in, but this tabs in. It does tab in. It's where it's supposed to go. I don't know why it's suddenly not lining up. Come on, push that in. Bring this in. Why are you being difficult? There's no reason for this. Swing that in and tab it. I seriously don't understand why this isn't tabbing in, because it is supposed to. There we go. So that tabs in, and yeah, this just kind of sits in here. I really feel like there's got to be something that this section's supposed to do differently, but heck if I can figure out what that is. But anyway, that all tabbed in. Now, this piece is it's pretty loose, so it will probably flop around, but it's normally like this for vehicle mode. You want to slide it out a little bit and rotate it around, and it'll tab over this piece here. And then this can come back to be heel. And finally, this moves into place to become the robot mode foot, and then this folds down to be like part of a toe, I guess. And that is one leg. Oh wait, no. I also want to take this and push that back. Now that's one leg. Okay. Second leg should be a little bit less of a pain since I kind of got my rhythm down. So pull this out. Untab. Whoop. I guess maybe also rotate this down a bit. Get things sort of out of the way. Untab this section from the wheel well and bring it up and out. This can rotate around. This can come out a bit. Also want to remember, take this little flap and pull that down. Then you can take this foot and bring it out. Now with the foot out, this needs to move. This is mostly me still just not being familiar with where stuff should be to keep it out of the way. But yeah, I can make sure that's out of the way and bring this out. While I'm doing this, just gonna bring this around and actually keep this on the other side of that door and rotate it around this way. And straighten out the knee while I'm at it just to give myself enough clearance for this. Okay, bring this out, bring this into place, flip little spike the rest of the way up. Now, going to make sure that this doesn't get caught up on anything. So rotate this around. Rotate this outer joint so that the leg is more properly a leg. Bring this in and just kind of situate that. We'll do the foot now. So gonna take this, pull it out, rotate it around and tab it into the base of the foot. Take this little spike and push it back. Bring this back to be the heel. And that pretty much does it for the foot for now. Gonna take this whole piece and untab it from the rear light. Slide it down a bit and kind of swing everything around. Rotate this and then fold it in and tab it into the inside of the leg. And I'm going to try, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set it up so that this little tab on the rear window section ends up underneath this, so that way it's less likely to flop around. So I'm going to bring that in, just kind of hold that up in place and push this in, and that should keep this from moving around too much. So there we go. And forgot to do this part. So rotate this around and then telescope this in. I should have done that first. So telescope this in, then push this in and get all that tabbed in over this tab. Swing the foot up, bring down this piece as like another part of the foot or toe or whatever. And there we go. There is the lower body all done. And as I said, this is like, it's nowhere near as bad as I'm making it seem. It's just that I'm a little out of practice with this guy. But there's the lower body. Now the upper body it's actually easier. It's more difficult. The upper body is a little more difficult going into vehicle mode rather than robot mode. But I'm going to take these little door wings and bring them back now that there's space. And these can just sit back here for now. I'm going to take these bits up front here and do a Human Alliance sound wave and shift them up and in. And shift up and in. This front section it slides down. Like you can kind of see how it's slid down here, but it also folds out. So you want to slide it down in the slider and fold it out. Now I find it's easiest to unplug everything along here, like along here and then along here. So pull out and pull out to untab all of this. And then once this is all untabbed, you can take this section and rotate it forward because it tabs in here. So do that and untab it and rotate it around a bit just to kind of get it out of the way. And now I'm going to take the arm and rotate it a bit so that we have enough clearance to unfold it. And this will unfold. This little panel here may get caught, so you want to open that up, but rotate it and fold that out. Take this panel and fold it in. And then want to take the hand and rotate it. Never mind. We'll deal with rotating later. So hand will stay where it is for now. Instead, we're going to finish rotating this around and kind of bring the wheel out a bit so that we can accordion this piece up, and I'm bending the elbow to kind of get it out of the way. And this can kind of shift around and through, or maybe not. Maybe we'll just do the other arm. So instead, going to rotate this again to try and open it up. You don't have to rotate this one as much because you've already got more clearance now, but open that up. And this is the hardest part of the upper body, is like getting the hands right, because you want them oriented like this, and with this panel down, this is able to fold in around the bicep. You want to have the thumb like this, where it's pointed backwards. It's also on the wrong side of the hand, but I'll show that later. But that's because the thumb has to tuck in at an angle kind of going this way underneath all of this. Otherwise, things are not going to line up right. But get this kind of out, hold that panel, and we'll just leave the hand. And like before, want to separate all of this, and then you can rotate this to unplug it from here. And that just really does make things a little bit easier. And this can fold up a bit, this can fold down, this can hinge out. It's on a bit of a double hinge. So there is all that. Okay. Now, with all of this mess, going to rotate this piece down, which will get these more kind of out of the way, which is good. With all of this rotated around, want to take the front section of the car, rotate that 180 degrees. Maybe this should go, there we go. Just rotate that around 180 degrees. And now this swings in and, okay. So as you saw, this kind of accordions in. This swings down, and then this section here tabs in to the inside of the front grille section. So that will tab in like that. And then this piece here, which is kind of wiggly for some reason. I think what happened was I was messing with it and like unseated something, but I can't really, yeah, there's a little screw in there that you can't really see from this angle, but I think I need to tighten that screw, but it's not that big a deal. Anyway, this just plugs in here, as you saw. And then back here, there's this little silver piece that plugs in to the back here. And that is all of that. These bits can kind of fold in and rotate down, again, just to keep them out of the way. And for the finishing touches, of which there are several, okay. So with the arms kind of like this, you want to take this piece and flip it up, which allows you to rotate the arms on this joint so that they're now in the proper position. This whole assembly double hinges down and sits kind of around the windshield piece to kind of close that off. Then you can rotate the arm down. Same deal here. Going to bring this out a bit so that we can fold this piece in, bring the arm to the front, and then hinge this down. That will, it's not like a super sturdy locking thing, but it does kind of sit in place pretty solidly. So we do that. You can take the head and double hinge it back, because it does actually kind of shift forward for the sake of the transformation. So hinge it back a bit. These pieces rotate up, and then what I do is I rotate them to the front, but you can, it's Dark of the Moon Soundwave. You can kind of orient them however you want. Take the door sections of the doors and fold them in, and then rotate this up and just kind of situate it how you want. So fold that in, bring this up, and situate. And there's Soundwave's back. Almost done. Just got to do those arms, and the arms are actually a bit of a process, let's say. So first off, I got to bend these knees. I think I straightened them out a little too much. But yeah, the arms are a thing. So first thing is you want to rotate them so that the elbow is facing forward. You can rotate the hand so that the hand is in the proper orientation. And then I should zoom in so you can see this better. And then you take the thumb, and it's on this like ball and stalk assembly here. So you want to bring the thumb up, and that puts it in the proper orientation for, there we go. That puts it in the proper orientation for the proper hand. And that is it for that. But now comes the hard part. So I'm going to take this piece and shift it in, move this kind of out of the way, and this section here is actually on a slider. And what you do is you slide it out, but it is very difficult to do that. So I end up using a spudger. But you slide this out, which again is tricky. Try it around this side maybe. Pushing here help. You want to, come on. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So pull that out, and that just kind of beefs up the bicep. Get on camera. That beefs up the bicep a bit, which is not a necessary step, but it's a step. And then this little piece in here, you want to rotate this out as far as you can so you can pull this little piece out, then tuck this back in, and that just kind of sits like that. And that is one arm. We're almost done, just got to do the other arms. So we'll do the slider part first. So push that in just so we can kind of get this out of the way. I'm going to try to do this without the spudger. I'm going to use this. So actually, we're not even rotated around properly. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a finger on this little, this little bit right in here, as well as on this flat piece here. I'm going to try to use that angle to pull, and oh, that one slid out much better. So there we go, beefed up bicep, bring this out, flip this piece out, and then tuck it back in. And finally, I'm going to take the hand, rotate it, and then bring the thumb up on that little stalk. And you can leave it like this if you want. I don't really like that, but since it's on a ball joint, you can just rotate it so it looks much more natural. That was something that when I first saw videos of this guy, I was a little bit like, I don't like how the hands look because the thumb's weird. But then I realized, like, oh, wait, it's a ball joint. You can just rotate it so it looks a lot less odd. But yeah, that is it for the transformation. And I know that was a bit messy, but I blame me more than I blame this particular figure, because Mista's transformation is really not bad. And it is way better than the Cyber Factory oversized knockoff that I looked at recently. I still like the Cyber Factory one for what it is, and that transformation works leagues better than it did at its original non-knockoff size, but I still think Mista is a better figure to transform, even if it is a bit, I don't know, tricky in places. But here we go. Here we have Mista all transformed up. And I mean, it's messy. There's no denying that it's a bit messy. The doors for the back don't have like a real solid place to lock in or anything like that. So you can kind of set them like this, but they don't really sit at the angle that they're supposed to. The proportions on this guy are a little bit odd. He's a little bit puffy looking in terms of the just the shapes and stuff like that. The shoulders are a little bit small. The arms stick a little bit too far out from the torso. But I don't care. Like, this isn't a perfect likeness of Dark of the Moon Soundwave, which is fine because it's Dark of the Moon Soundwave. I feel like small liberties being taken with the design of Bayverse figures don't bother me at all, because those designs are so visually, let's go with involved, compared to other figure designs. I don't think it's that bad to, deviate slightly, because even if this isn't a perfect one-to-one recreation, you're not going to think this is like Top Spin or Leadfoot or Optimus Prime or Bumblebee or anyone else. If you've seen Dark of the Moon and you care, that this is Dark of the Moon Soundwave. But yeah, this guy looks really good. There's a lot of, or to me at least, yes, his legs are messy, but that's never really been an issue for me. There's a lot of nice detailing and paint in here. You've got some weirdly shiny chrome bits for the speakers on his forearms for some reason. But then there's also some nice detailing in the biceps and the arms and the waist section. The torso does the thing where everything kind of cinches in, which I love. Again, I kind of wish some things tabbed in. Like, these don't really have a place to plug in, so you can knock them out of place, which is a little bit but it's okay. The head looks really good. I've said this before, I think that the Cyber Era, or Toy whatever, I still can't remember the name of the original company that made that design. I do think the sculpting and detailing on that is better, but again, this is identifiable as Dark of the Moon Soundwave. And yeah, I'll talk about the head details talk about the head in more detail in a minute. But yeah, this is a good looking guy. Not perfect at all, but the transformation, once you're used to it, once it hasn't been like a really long time since you transformed it, is perfectly manageable, and you're left with a good looking Soundwave that is pretty decently articulated. So let's just move straight on to the head sculpt. And the head sculpt is, as I said, a little bit off. It's a little bit puffy, I think is how I described it. I think it's how I described this figure in general, where it's just a little bit rounder, but I don't mind it. The actual design, the sculpt and stuff is good. The silhouette makes sense. There's some nice color differential here with like the goldish copper in the sides and like the darker grays, the lighter silvers, the red for the eyes. It's a good looking head. It's kind of bat-like too. Particularly this one. Like the Cyber Era one is based on the same design, but like this one in particular looks very very bat-like to me. Now, as you saw, the head is on a ball joint, so get these arms out of the way. So you can't really, that's pulling the side of the head off. You can't really do the tilt, but it can rotate. It can go up and down. Maybe it's not on a ball joint. Let's see. No, there's looks like there's a ball joint in there. I think it's just extremely stiff. But you've got some decent motion there. You can kind of stretch things forward using the transformation joint. And I think that's actually how the head's supposed to sit for the transformation. It was just slightly off when I had it because I didn't push it far enough. But yeah, so you've got some good articulation there. The back wheels and doors can be posed slightly differently, as you saw before during transformation. The shoulders, the arms can rotate all the way around. There's a butterfly joint that you can use for a single click if you want. It starts to look weird and it's like somewhat disconnected if you do that, but you do get that joint. The arms can also move out pretty decently, actually. Like if we rotate this so that it's straight, like that's not bad. That's, with everything going on, that's actually pretty darn good. But if you want to, and like this is not in the way, you can use that transformation joint to bring the arms up even more. It really messes with the sculpt, but you can do it. Also, as I'm looking at this, there's something I didn't mention during the transformation, but there is a little tab on the side of the windshield section that actually tabs in to the underarm there. So that helps to, like, it doesn't super duper solidly hold it in place, but it does keep it from flopping around too much. But yeah, so pretty decent, actually really decent outward arm movement. You get the shoulder piece can kind of, like all the shoulder stuff can move out of the way. You get a bicep swivel. You get a single jointed elbow that bends 90 degrees. But if you wanted to, you could flip this panel out of the way and bring it up more. You would need to push this slider in. I'm not going to do that. But you saw for the transformation, you get like 180 degrees worth of elbow bend. So if you really wanted to, you could move this out of the way, push that in, and bend the elbow up all the way. It would only look good for certain angles, but you could do it. There's a ball joint in the wrist, so you can get a little bit of side to side and up and down, as well as the rotation. Though the way it attaches, if I open this up again, you can see it plugs in towards like the side of the hand rather than the center. So the rotation will throw the hand out of center if you do certain angles. Like this one's fine, but then if you go like that, it just doesn't look right. The fingers are individually articulated at 2 points. You got one at the base and one up here. So pretty decently posable fingers. I should zoom in more so you could see more what I'm talking about. So one joint here and one joint here. And then the thumb, kind of the same deal. You get that one joint and two joints, but then because of the ball joint, you can use that as like a swivel, as well as if you really wanted to, you could angle it more that way. I don't particularly use it for that, but you could if you wanted. So there is that. And let me just bring these arms out, because one of the things that this guy has going for him that the Really good looking, and I would still say, even though I've got my gripes with that one, better looking Cyber Era figure has, or rather, something this guy has that the Cyber Era figure doesn't have, is what I meant to say, is a waist swivel. You have a waist swivel on a Masterpiece-ish Dark the Moon Soundwave. That's cool. I like that. The hips can go forward to just about 90, can go back. If there's this little piece back here on the back of the leg, that can knock into stuff, but if that's not in the way of anything, you can get back to about there. It's the doors kind of stopping it. So if the door's not in the way, how much of a difference does... Okay, you can go back even further if the door's not in the way. The hips can also go out. This panel can be a problem, but you can also shift it and turn it, which doesn't look great, but you can use it to get it out of the way. So the hips can go out to 9. Actually, I think they can... Pretty sure they can go out past 90. Oh yeah, they can go out past 90. It's just other stuff getting in the way. We'll just leave you up. And you also... you do get a thigh swivel. The rotation can be hampered by this piece, depending on the angle of the hip, but you get a thigh swivel. This skirt, as I said, movable. It's on a hinge and a ball joint, and this moves around as well, which makes it a little bit fiddly, because it doesn't really lock in anywhere, but it's manageable. Anyway, with the leg forward, you get a knee bend. I'll show it from this angle. You get a knee bend, but it's a little weird. Like, basically the lower leg moves around where the knee is. So you get that knee bend, and it bends to a little bit past 90, but it's a little bit weird looking. But the whole design's a little bit weird looking, so whatever. But yeah, it doesn't look super duper great when you bend the knee like that, but it bends. And then for the feet, they can, as you saw, they're on a ball joint, so you can wiggle them side to side and rotate forward and back a bit. You can also rotate them, because there's a lot of play in that bulge socket because of the transformation, I think. So yeah, pretty posable. Pretty decently posable, and just pretty neat. Like, yes, there are definitely issues with this guy, as I've said before. And you can probably see how I'm sort of not struggling, but constantly having to like touch up things, because he is a little bit fiddly. I will admit that. Like, with so many bits, a lot of which don't actually lock in, it can be a little tricky to get him to settle down. But I still think he looks really good. Just, I really wish that like the doors could lock in, and like some of these other things could at least tab in somewhere. I imagine they didn't do that because they wanted things to not potentially shear off, but it still would have been nice to have just a little bit, maybe just a little bit of extra locking points for some of these things. Also, I just realized I've been messing around with his legs and it's not even on camera. So yeah, not perfect looking, but still decent to mess with, a little bit fiddly. I still think, even though he was like one of the first, if not, no, he was the first movie masterpiece style third-party Soundwaves, Dark of the Moon Soundwaves that we got. I know there was another one that was in the works, but that never came out. So yeah, this is the first one we got, and I still think he actually holds up compared to the other options that we currently have, which is to say the one and then the one that is a little bit bigger. Now, accessory-wise, outside of Laserbeak and Ravage, he does have one blaster, which is disappointing that it's just one, but he comes with a blaster. It is silver, it's got some gold molded in there, and is it blast effect compatible? Kind of. You can kind of wedge a blast effect in there, but you can see it's not going in all the way, and it's really just plastic pressed into this gold painted surface, so probably don't want to leave it like that, but can technically use blast effects. And the way this works is you've got 2 tabs on either side of the handle, and either hand has 2 tabs or 2 slots in there. Let me actually zoom in so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It has 2 slots, and you just plug it in as you would expect. And what I'm going to do is bring the thumb down a bit, but I'm going to plug this in, wrap the fingers around it, and then wrap the thumb around it. And there you go. He holds it he holds it extremely well. That gun's not going anywhere until you want it to. But there he goes. He looks good holding it. It is a shame that he only comes with the one, but whatever. Also, you can't use the Cyber Era gun with this sound wave. It doesn't, like, the hands aren't shaped the same. It doesn't use the same kind of connection points, which is unfortunate. Okay, now, with all of this done, so many little fiddly bits. With all of this done, there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is Laserbeak and Ravage. We've got to bring them in. So here is Ravage, and he looks the part with Ravage. And there's Laserbeak, and he looks the part with Laserbeak. What bums me out about Laserbeak is I feel like they should have been able to come up with a way to, like, attach Laserbeak to Soundwave in some fashion. There is not a way to easily do it. Like, basically you have to just kind of play around with the joints and line things up so that things just kind of wedge in. Like, what I end up doing most of the time is I fold this flap back and then get Laserbeak kind of in here and get like his heel kind of under the headlight piece. Get it under the headlight piece and fold this kind of back in to pin the leg down. And it just doesn't, it never looks quite right. Doesn't really do the job. It's not super solid, but it kind of technically works. Like, it is on there, but it also can fall off at a moment's notice. So yeah, that is a bit of a bummer. I do wish that they had done something else for the Laserbeak, at least, connectivity, but nope, they did not. Oops, got thrown off again. Anyway, let's bring this back, and we'll get Ravage in here, because why not? So there's the squad. And now let's do some size comparisons. So here is Dinobot for a Tall Voyager, Overprime for a Tall Deluxe, and Samus. So there's how he works there. And he's, it's a movie masterpiece-ish figure. So it's kind of in that vague Carbot, movie masterpiece Carbot realm. And there we go, here is Burnout. So there's how it stacks up there. And now let's bring in some other stuff. So I was talking about it before. Here is the Cyber Era oversized knockoff of, again, I forget the name of the company that made the original version that was actually more like Legends scale. But yeah, I feel like as much as I prefer this figure as a figure, I do feel like deco-wise, there's not really much comparison. The legs on this guy are cleaner. The proportions are a little bit better. The sculpting is really nice. The shoulders look nicer. This is just a better looking figure, but like the transformation on this guy is a lot more of a pain than what was going on here. And in addition to that, the articulation is not as good on this guy. He doesn't have a waist joint. His ankles are weird because of how things come together. His knees are weird because of how things come together. You don't get a lot of outward motion on his arms. So this guy looks great, but is a bit hampered in other ways. And there's also, of course, the Human Alliance Soundwave mold. In this case, this is the Movie the Best or Anniversary version that I've had for a bit. And obviously one of these looks much more screen accurate than the other, but I still like this mold. It's weird. It is not accurate, but I enjoy it. I think it's neat. And that is that. And now I'm going to do some slightly weird stuff. Not like that. And going to bring in some other Bayverse figures that I have just for size comparisons. I don't have a lot of Bayverse figures left, but I'm bringing in the ones I've got. Which is to say, figures that come from the Bayverse, but aren't necessarily Movie Masterpiece or from that era. But here we've got Revenge of the Fallen Mindwipe, which is still a great figure, but has nothing really to do with a third-party Movie Masterpiece Soundwave. Except for the bat aesthetic. I guess they both have that going on. Here is United Lugnut, based off of the, what was it, Reveal the Shield Lugnut? Yeah, Reveal the Shield Lugnut mold. There's how they stack up. Actually, we'll leave Lugnut out for a second because their other size comparison, we're going to bring out Revenge of the Fallen Lockdown. So let's move you over here. So here's Lugnut, there's Lockdown. I just figure we should have Lugnut and Lockdown together, you know? But there you go. And this is Lockdown at his scrunchiest. So he is a little bit shorter, or about the same height, rather, as Revenge of the Fallen Lockdown. Was it Revenge of the Fallen? Whatever thing he... that Lockdown. The Movieverse Lockdown. That's how they stack up. I've got... Tiny Turbo Changers Bayverse Starscream. Just because. I said I don't have a lot of Bayverse stuff anymore. Studio Series Deluxe Class Sideways. I will defend this figure for as long as I can. I actually still really like Studio Series Sideways. This is a great little monster guy. And that's it for the Bayverse stuff, but one more size comparison before we do the most important one, of course. Here he is with Reactivate Soundwave. Just in case y'all were curious, because I feel like maybe pulling out something that's a little bit more current than Dark of the Moon might be warranted. So yeah, here he is with Reactivate Soundwave. And finally, there is NewAge Mista with the Duck Tank. And that's it. That does it for NewAge Mista. I finally made a video on this guy, and it was not a complete mess, I guess. It wasn't great, but it wasn't a complete mess. And yeah, all I could do is reiterate. Despite everything, I do really like this guy. This is the first run one that I got, like, however many years ago it was, like, I want to say like 3 or 4, maybe more than that. Probably more than that, actually, at this point. You know what? I don't want to think about how long it's been. But yeah, I have held on to this figure this long, and I intend to hang on to it even longer because as glaringly imperfect as it is, it's still enjoyable to me. And I still think, even though, as I said many times now, the Cyber Era / whatever the original company was figure is the better looking Dark of the Moon Soundwave. Unequivocally, unquestionably the better looking Dark of the Moon Soundwave. I still think this is the better toy. It's the better figure. It's the better collectible figure. Like, however you want to look at it, other than just how they look. In every way, this is still the better one. And I am noticing, I think, either during transformation or just over time, there has been some paint chipping on this guy, particularly around the waist, but whatever. Because I'm trying to talk this thing up. So yeah, I do really like this guy, because that's pretty obvious at this point. But I just wish that, one, I wish it was easier to tuck those hands in for the vehicle mode. I also wish that the legs were maybe a little bit cleaner. but they do come together. I wish that the integration with Laserbeak at least was handled a little bit better. Like, even just give him like a peg or something that's designed to peg into like a specific spot. That's all they needed, but whatever. But you know, those gripes aside, I really do like this guy a lot. So that's it. That's all I got to say about this. I'm pretty sure Mista is still available. Like, I feel like NewAge has been either re-releasing or still trying to get rid of their original stock. So he shouldn't be that hard to get a hold of. Otherwise, there have been knockoffs of this guy that have been made. So if you can find that and you want this figure, then I guess go with that. But yeah, I think he's worth it, either version that you get. As I said, more pleasant to transform than the other one. But that is going to do it. That's all I've got to say about this because I've talked for long enough. That transformation took a while. So thank you everybody for watching. Whatever your thoughts on this guy or the other Dark of the Moon sound waves we've gotten, feel free to chime it down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And I don't know what the next video is going to be because I'm still waiting for new stuff to come in, but it's probably going to be something from one of those deliveries whenever they get here. Unless it takes too long, in which case I'm going to have to default to another figure I've been putting off making a video for a very long time.